Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Northeast Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. It was another active severe weather day for Memorial Day across the central United States, with severe weather reports all the way from Colorado into Ohio. And one of these tornadoes in Ohio was a particularly damaging tornado that struck the city of Dayton during the overnight hours. Now, this video I pulled from Twitter, and I froze it during one of the lightning strikes. Remember, this was at night, so the tornado was hidden by darkness and rain. But within the lightning strikes, you could see that very large tornado moving through the city of Dayton. And as the sun rises now on Tuesday morning, we're seeing some of the very strong damage that this tornado inflicted. It does appear this was a strong tornado moving through a city at night, a very problematic situation. And the reason that I mention this is because we do have the chance for severe weather in the Northeast region, at least portions of it, for the next 3 days. Now, the last 72 hours of precipitation really highlights this pattern, where we've seen the repeated rounds of storms developing off to the west, along the dry line, and near our centers of low pressure across the central United States, with those storms then tracking off to the east, bringing severe weather and flooding rains to much of the Corn Belt region. We're also seeing, though, around the flow of that area of high pressure off to the southeast, we've got flow going clockwise around that. And we're starting to see some of those storms again track along the top of that ridge and into the Northeast region. And we'll talk about the severe weather risk here in just a moment. But the last 30 days of precipitation here in terms of a departure from normal really highlights the hardest hit areas across the middle of the country here: Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. But very wet conditions do extend into the Midwest, and then off into parts of the northern plains into the upper Midwest as well, as down into the south. So really a widespread area dealing with too much rainfall. The exception here is going to be off to the southeast around that area of low pressure, but even into the Northeast region, or that area of high pressure, I apologize, across the Northeast region, still dealing with at least patches of wetter than average conditions. Soil moisture, in terms of a percent of normal, very high, anomalously high across much of the central and the eastern United States. Again, the exception being off to the southeast. And the reason here, it's an alignment like this, with the jet stream, we've been staring at it for the last few weeks. This trough over the western United States goes into a ridge over the east, and it's the patch of stronger winds, the area of high pressure off to the southeast, that continues to funnel Gulf moisture into the central U.S., and then along the core of these stronger upper level winds that you see there, that's what becomes the focal point for the development of low pressure. And that's also the instigator of the development of these clusters of storms that produce heavy rain and severe weather across the central U.S. And then again, seeing some of those ride the upper level jet stream winds into parts of the Northeast region. The day one severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center highlights an enhanced risk for strong to severe storms across the almost entire state of Pennsylvania, with a slight risk surrounding that. As we look at Wednesday, the day two, a slight risk over a very similar area there, much of the state of Pennsylvania, and then for the day on Thursday, highlighting a marginal risk across the state of Pennsylvania. And this is, again, subject to be upgraded perhaps to a slight or an enhanced risk once we get a little bit closer and that threat becomes a little bit more consistent or specific, or able to be nailed down there, and we can kind of gauge how big the risk is going to be. But for the next 3 days, severe weather risk over almost the same area here. The state of Pennsylvania seems to be the bullseye, and we'll talk about why here. Looking at the jet stream winds here from the European model at 500 millibars. Now, what we look for here are patches of very strong winds. When these patches of upper level winds push into a warm and unstable air mass, that helps the air rise, and that again, of course, leads to development of showers and thunderstorms and severe storms when we're talking about an air mass such as this in the late spring and the summer. I'm going to go ahead and just play this out, and we'll go through time here, and I'm going to show you now. We're dealing with that front and the unstable air mass across the state of Pennsylvania as we head into Tuesday afternoon and evening. Here's our first shortwave. You see that patch of stronger winds pushing into the state of Pennsylvania? That is the trigger, or that mechanism that is going to not only help develop strong storms, but those stronger upper level winds, they take those thunderstorms and they can enhance them, take them to severe levels, and they also give them longevity. Instead of your typical summer storm, which goes up and dies within an hour, we get these strong jet stream winds. They can tilt the updraft there, and that helps these storms not only become severe, but last for many hours at a time. As we head into the afternoon on Wednesday now, here's our next patch of strong upper level winds. We're on the southern periphery of that here in the state of Pennsylvania. And then we go into Thursday, we watch from the southwest, the next shortwave pushing into the area, and that's going to be the focal point for the strong storms on Thursday afternoon and evening. Now we'll look at the high resolution rapid refresh. We'll zoom in on the northeast region. we're looking at something called CAPE, convective available potential energy. And this is, showing the fuel. This is the energy that these thunders draw from, where, we get the warm and the muggy air mass, and these thunderstorms begin to develop. And again, we see very unstable air mass across the state of Pennsylvania by the time we get to this is 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. Now, another thing we can do, we can take this CAPE, this instability, and we can combine it within our weather models with wind shear, and that gives us something called a supercell composite parameter. Now, this is just used as guidance, but it can be helpful in highlighting areas that are especially favorable for the development of supercell thunderstorms. Now, supercells, those are the top of the top when it comes to thunderstorms across the world. These are the ones that produce much of the severe weather, most of the severe weather we see across the United States each year. And they're also the ones that produce most of the tornadoes that we see each year. And so we're seeing a signal like this bullseye on parts of central Pennsylvania during the afternoon. And that is an alarming look, for the development, again, of supercell storms producing damaging winds, hail, and some tornadoes across much of the state of Pennsylvania. We'll look at the high-resolution rapid refresh simulated reflectivity now. Let me go ahead and jump back. And there we see it as we head into Tuesday afternoon, the development of these isolated cells. You see them there, and those are likely supercell thunderstorms, again producing large hail and damaging winds, but also the potential for isolated tornadoes across the state of Pennsylvania. Now, we can also look at this with the high-resolution NAM model, and what I did here was kind of loop the next 36 hours. So what you're going to see as this plays, first you'll see it peak across parts of Pennsylvania Tuesday afternoon, but then as we head into Wednesday, we get a very similar look across the same area of Pennsylvania. So that risk for large hail, damaging winds, and perhaps isolated tornadoes is going to be sticking around not only through Wednesday afternoon, but potentially as far into the future as Thursday afternoon. The high-resolution NAM model, precipitation type forecast, and we'll go through this over time to highlight the timing on this. As we head into the afternoon Thursday, we're seeing those cells develop, maybe multiple rounds of strong storms tracking across the state of Pennsylvania Tuesday afternoon and evening. Tomorrow, Wednesday morning, we'll get a break from this, but then it's during the afternoon and evening we see the same thing. These isolated cells, perhaps supercell thunderstorms producing large hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes across the state of Pennsylvania Wednesday afternoon. Now we head into Thursday morning, and Thursday afternoon we get a similar look. Once we get to the daytime, the afternoon heating, we've got another chance for scattered strong storms across, bullseye on the state of Pennsylvania. Surrounding areas be weather aware as well, but a problematic situation here for the state of Pennsylvania. I worry about you folks there over the next 72 hours, multiple rounds of severe weather possible. Now, as we just look at the next week or so of precipitation across the region, just quickly playing out the European model, we see a small shift in the pattern. We're not seeing the repeated rounds of heavy storms developing and tracking eastward across from the central to the eastern U.S. We get a little bit more northwest flow in the jet stream, and that's going to bring in chances for rain showers, but a little bit less severe weather once we get past Thursday, at least for a few days. The reason we keep these rain showers in the forecast is because we don't completely shut the Gulf of Mexico down. We continue to see high pressure over the southeastern United States, and that is pumping Gulf moisture into the central United States, which then can kind of ride those jet stream winds off into the northeast region. So again, the most problematic period going to be here Tuesday through Thursday, but still dealing with rain chances as we head into the weekend and early next week. Total precipitation from the European weather model, forecast model here, just raw data here, and again, it highlights that pattern with the heaviest rain falling across the central U.S., but then kind of following that front, following the upper-level jet stream winds into parts of the northeast region, especially southern regions. GFS has a similar look, maybe a little bit further north with that swath of heavy rain here, getting some of that into parts of New Hampshire and Vermont, maybe southern Maine as well. And then as we look at the week 2 precipitation anomalies, so getting into the first week of June now, looking at perhaps wetter than normal conditions off to the north with dry to near average conditions across the southern portions of the northeast region. Temperature anomalies for the next 5 days, taking us into the first couple days of June. You see that area high pressure here, keeping it warm over the southeastern United States, but that dividing line here, you can draw a line where we got the warm air to the south and the cooler air off to the north, and that's your focal point for the development and the tracking of some of these strong clusters of thunderstorms over the next 72 hours. Now looking ahead to the first week of June here, days 6 through 10, we kind of shift to a pattern where we've got more of a ridge over the west and a trough to the east. It's not terribly dramatic, but it does cool us down over the northeast region for the first few days of June here. with near average conditions perhaps near coastal areas. We'll finish here with a look at the next 5 days. Your high temperatures, again, you can see it here. Tuesday, high temps along and south of that air mass, or along and south of that front. We're very warm and unstable. And that's where we got the chance for severe storms in there Tuesday afternoon, evening, into the early overnight. Cooler off to the north, 50s and 60s off to the north for your Tuesday high temperatures. Wednesday, a similar look, 50s and 60s off to the north, 80s to the south. Thursday, Friday, and then we'll finish with Saturday here. Again, a very similar look, a typical late May look. Temperatures in the lower 80s off to the south, with high temperatures in the low to mid 60s off to the north. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video. And I'll have your next Northeast region for you here midday on Friday. Remember now, just be weather aware over the next 3 days, especially you folks in Pennsylvania, while we talk about the repeated rounds of potentially severe storms. Have a great day.